This presentation continues the idea that we were talking about with simple interest. You may recall that time has to be in years with the simple interest formula. This short video is going to show you how to work with time other than years. So it doesn't add a great deal of complexity to what we've already done. It adds one extra step. So our learning goal this time is once again use our knowledge of percentages and the simple interest formula to work with interest over periods other than years. So this is the only real difference from what we knew before. So t equals time in years. We already knew that, but we need to make sure we change all periods to years for the simple interest formula. So these are the parts of the formula that we already have. So that's the extra step. So how do we convert time? It comes down to this. How do we change months to years? How many months are there in a year? There are 12 months in a year. So to change that to years, we divide by 12 to reduce the number. There are less years when you talk about months. So 12 months, you change that to 1 year by dividing by 12. Weeks, there are 52 weeks in a year, so we divide by 52. Fortnights, it's half. A fortnight is 2 weeks, so that means we're halving that number there, making it dividing by 26 fortnights in a year. Quarters, there are 4 quarters in a year, which is a total of 3 months. This one's a bit of a tricky one because students tend to get confused with the fact because there are 3 months in a quarter. Excuse my atrocious mouse handwriting. And sometimes students think that they need to divide by 3. There are actually 4 quarters in a year, so we divide by 4, not by the number of months in a quarter. And the other one that we sometimes see is also called biannually. Bi means 2, annually year, so twice per year, 2 times per year, which means we're dividing by 2. So these are the conversion numbers that you should know from your knowledge of time. How many of those time periods are there in one whole year? And that's what we do first. So let's look at a worked example. Here's our example here. Steve borrowed $1,000 from his bank over a period of 42 months at an interest rate of 8% per annum. How much money would he need to repay at the end of this time? As we did before, our first step is to identify the critical information. So he borrowed, this time it's a loan, which means we have to repay that money. So he borrowed $1,000, that's our principal. Over a period is time, 42 months. We can see that's not in years, so we're going to have to change that number. We've got an interest rate here of 8% PA. PA, remember, means per annum or per year. How much money will you need to repay? So when you repay money, you repay what you borrow plus the interest. So let's look at that summarized. P is $1,000, R is 8%, and as we learned last time, we divide 8 by 100, percentage by 100, to give an answer of 0.08 as a decimal. 42 months, 42 divided by 12, because there are 12 months in a year, gives us 3.5 years. So these 3 numbers here are what we're going to substitute in our formula to find I, the interest. So there's our formula, that's the next step. So we write our variables, write our formula, and then substitute. Those steps are always the same when you have a formula. So I equals 1,000 for P, multiplied by 0.08 for R, multiplied by 3.5. And that equals $280. Now, that's not the amount we need to pay back. If you only had to pay back this number here, that means you're making money, and banks wouldn't let you do that. If you borrow $1,000, you have to pay that back there as well as the $280. If you only paid back the $280, you essentially got that $1,000 for almost free, which is not correct. So think about that as you go. So remember, it's A equals P plus I. Remember, you don't need to use that formula if you don't want to, but that's the concept behind it. So 1,000 plus 280 equals $1,280. And since it's a word problem, we write a sentence to summarize the information. Okay, so you repay $280 of interest for a total amount of $1,280. Now this is using our ThinkBoard, problem solving ThinkBoard. Let's look at how that works. Once again in the middle, we've got our problem up here, our see, our plan, our do, and our check. And we're going to talk about how to check for reasonableness of this problem soon. So the first thing we do is summarize that information. So like we did before, we borrowed $1,000, a period of 42 months, a rate of 8% per annum. How much we need to repay. So let's put that up here. So let's summarize that information as we did before. P equals $1,000. There's our interest rate converted to a decimal. There's our time in months converted to years by dividing by 12. And how are we going to solve? What's our strategy? It's going to be the simple interest formula. I equals PRT. We could also include the A equals P plus I there if we want. So here's our doing. We're just going to write the formula and substitute in, as we did before, $280. Add that to the original principal for $1,280. So let's do a check. The way we're going to check this time is not estimate that, but just check that it actually makes sense. So estimating reasonableness in this case, we're going to round some of these numbers to something a bit easier to work with. So 0.08 is close to 0.1. 0.1 is a nice easy number because you're dividing by 10. We take our $1,000 of principal, we'll multiply that by 0.1, which is the first step here. P times R gives us $100. And if you multiply the time now, which is the next step, PR times T, 100 times 3.5 is about $350. Now we've got $280 here. Our check should be a little higher than that because we rounded this number here, the 0.08, up to 0.1, which is, well, it doesn't look like a big change, but it has a reasonable impact on it. What that does mean is that our number here, 350, should be a bit bigger than that 280. So it's close, seems reasonable. Do you need to write that down on paper? No, it's just a way of doing it in your head as a check. Remember, if we ask you an exam to verify your answer, this is the sort of thing we want to see. So from this lesson here, you should be able to now work with time periods other than years.